Hey guys, Foxdrop here with a video on the best junglers around right now in Season 6. This is a bit of a peculiar one coming at you today. If you told me a few patches ago that some of these champions would be on the top tier, I would have called you crazy. But not before asking you what you're on so I could get a hold of some of it for myself. This is a video being made in partnership with Pro Guides, who by the way have released quite a nifty new service called Genius. What they've done is they've banded together a bunch of high elo players to be at your disposal. So if you ever have a question you want to ask a high elo player, you can do that 24 hours a day. Not bad, eh? The beauty of League is that things are always changing. That might be scary for some of you, but remember guys, change is good. And that brings us nicely to our first champion on this list, Kazakhs. On my stream, people often ask me who's better between Kazakhs and Rengar. They're somewhat similar champions and they have that rivalry going on too. And for the longest time, I've always answered with Rengar. He's a very dominant solo queue jungler and he can make picks like nobody's business. Strangely enough though, right now, I don't think Rengar is better of the two at all. In fact, I think that Bug Boy is stronger by a fair ways. Kazakhs is one of those guys you really don't want to meet alone in a dark alley late at night. Emphasis on the alone part. Kazakhs' isolation damage is pretty absurd and it's really hard for him to lose isolated 1v1s. His rise is a somewhat subtle one, receiving a string of buffs dating all the way back to the end of Season 5. Eventually they caught up with him and people realised he's actually really good. He's especially good versus the current meta junglers who are all pretty high impact but fairly squishy. The perfect type for Kazakhs to prey upon. He's also a really good dragon killer, and with the new dragons hitting the rift and putting more emphasis on that neutral objective, Kazakhs can be quite diverse in terms of his usefulness to his team. And next up we have Malzahar. Yes, you heard me right, bloody Malzahar. Honestly, I don't even know where to begin with this. We are truly living in a golden age where NA reaches the finals of an international event, Leicester City won the Prem, and Malzahar bloody jungle is in my top 5. Unreal. I can't believe I'm saying any of this, but here we are. Unlike Kazakhs, Malzahar had less than a subtle breach into the spotlight. He got reworked and, well, yeah, basically he now summons a throng of sanguinary voidlings that blitz their way through jungle monsters like a gaggle of prepubescent fangirls at a One Direction concert. His ganking is a little off, but you don't pick him for that. His clearing, his objective control and his post level 6 playmaking is all pretty top notch. With the mage items update, Malz also has slightly better build paths in the jungle, which make his life just that little bit easier. Before we get on with the third champion, I just want to remind you that if you do end up enjoying this video, don't be afraid to leave that cheeky like, and as always, leave your suggestions, your feedback, your thoughts, whatever it may be down below in that comment section. Anyway, the third champion on the list here is another small surprise, which makes sense when you think about his skin selection. It's Fiddle. In my opinion, Fiddle has always been one of those solid solo queue junglers that works well if you're good on him. One trick Fiddle players are always pretty scary, or should I say pretty terrifying, to go up against with their ability to completely turn fights and games with well placed ultimates. The reason Fiddle has risen to a top 5 spot though is because of the changes to AP items and those he directly received as well in the mid-season mage update. He is now more consistent with his crow damage and has a passive that facilitates his ultimate pretty well. He's one of those champions who's pretty garbo when his ult is on cooldown but absolutely killer when it's up. Probably the best example of this in fact, making it really easy for him to completely wipe a lane out, tower dive, teamfight, all with the press of one button. Of course, he's also good at taking the new dragons away since he can tank forever with his drain even from really early on. In case you're worried about having a minor heart attack from observing this list so far, don't worry, the last two here are much more expected and standard. So with that said, next we have Teemo Jungle. Nah, I'm just kidding, it's Nidalee. And despite her recent nerfs that meant she couldn't root the neutral monsters, Nidalee remains an apex predator in the jungle. The aforementioned nerfs didn't really do too much to experienced Nidalee players who can just utilise her ability to kite the monsters with smart placements of her traps. Not to mention the fact that this is only really a problem for the very first clear, after which Nidalee not only has very little issue clearing, but actually becomes arguably the best jungle clearer in the whole game. Nidalee is able to thrive in a solo queue environment which places heavy emphasis on the early game and facilitates aggressive solo plays, especially those that hold very little risk, as is the case with Nidalee, who is able to hop, skip and jump her way out of danger should she find herself in it. She does fall off a bit later on as people start getting tankier and people start grouping up as well, and she's fairly vulnerable to getting bursted down, but even with such things considered, Nidalee is still a phenomenal jungler right now. And lastly, we have Kindred. I made a video a while back talking about why I thought that Kindred would be crazy strong this patch, and well, here we are. Basically, Kindred can just do it all. She's really good early game, she clears well, she duels and skirmishes well, she takes dragons well, she transitions into a tank killer late game and constantly threatens neutral objectives. I'll link to the video I made about her in the description if you want a more detailed explanation about the fact that this video exists and that I talk about Kindred in literally every single one of these tier lists that I've done so far for Season 6. I'm kind of getting a little bit tired of saying the same bloody things about her, so just go and watch that video and put me out of my misery. So outside of that list, there are obviously more than just these 5 junglers that excel in solo queue, quite a few more in fact. For the honourable mentions, there's Graves, Lee Sin if you're good on him, Elise and Gragas, who I think are really good right now. They're really good junglers, just in my opinion not quite as good as those that I mentioned in the list. Of course, the champion that should be number 1 in this list is the champion that you are the best on. Even if Kindred and Nidalee and all that malarkey are really strong, you'll always be better off picking your best champion rather than something that I told you was really good. For example, I'm currently sitting at about 33% win ratio on Kindred in my high diamond account, despite the fact that she's a really good jungler, and my Gragas is like 75% or something like that. So even though this top 5 may say one thing, my top 5 and your top 5 will look very different. That's all I want to say for this video, guys. Thanks again to Pro Guys for helping me with the editing here so I can pump out more content for you lot. If you want to find me on Facebook, on Twitter, stay up to date with me, you can do that. The links will be in the description down below. Also, go follow my stream, twitch.tv/Foxdrop, again down below in the description. But most importantly, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you in my next video.